Hey, everybody, welcome to the mentorship call for this week. We're here to talk about doing the right things with the people that you get. So, who has enrolled somebody in the last week, month that you're feeling stuck with or wanting to know next steps or need a response? How are you feeling about things? How's everything going?
I'll go first if no one wants to volunteer.
Okay.
I've enrolled 2 people in the past 6 weeks-ish, we'll say.
Okay.
And I go through the retention process and it's like I don't get any answers after they sign up.
Okay.
So I think it's April's retention saved in my phone. And it's like reach out on day 1, after they sign up and do these things, and day 2, and it breaks it right down.
Okay.
I just get no responses once people sign up.
Interesting. So you're going through the exact messages.
I mean, I'm tweaking them a little, connecting personally. If I see on
Yeah.
their Facebook page, hey, I saw you got a new dog, and just kind of still making it personable, but it's
Okay.
just nothing.
Um, I mean, I think that does happen sometimes. I mean, I get that sometimes, but it's not the norm. So it makes me wonder, like, what happened before that? Like, what was the enrollment process like? What do you think that these people were of a mindset of, I just want to try it? Were they committed to 90 days? Like, what was their expectation of what was going to happen
I
when they
have
signed up?
2 examples that are kind of opposite. One girl I had been following up for over a year,
Okay.
and she was finally like, "Hey, I'm ready," and she signed up. And then, I mean, her life just kind of blew up all at once, right after she signed up. So I knew I had been able to connect with her about her personal stuff that's going on. But when I bring up Plexus again, hey, have you started taking your products? And she signed up right at the end of the last free reset.
Okay.
So that was kind of I was checking in to see if she'd done her reset, and just nothing there. So even though things are kind of mellowing out in her life yet, I guess I'm just kind of stuck kind of bringing up Plexus again. I mean, I've
Could it
known her
be
whole life.
possible
It's
that
not
she's afraid of disappointing you?
maybe. I'm not sure. Um
Like maybe she didn't do her reset at all, or maybe she did do it and failed completely and is feeling shame about it.
I'm trying to think. We've been talking just about her personal stuff for a couple weeks now, but
Is the personal stuff like really bad?
I mean, so she has custody of her, unofficial custody of her grandkids.
Okay.
And the mother came in and was like, "You're never getting the kids back again." And it it's not a great situation for these kids, to be completely honest.
Okay.
But
Um,
that's mellowed out. The mother's realized she can't take care of the kids, so now the girl I signed up has the kids back, and is back in that routine. And she still comments on my posts and is like, "I can't wait to get started on my products," and
so
they've
I probably would say, hey, I'm just curious. Did I say anything that offended you? Because I really want to help support you. I appreciate you ordering. I know you were wanting XYZ result, but I noticed you're not responding to those things. So I just want to make sure I didn't say something that offended you. Maybe let her know how you're feeling. That's probably what I would do. Uh-oh. Sorry. My phone rang and it rang on my computer, which is odd. Oh, it's my daughter-in-law FaceTiming me. Um Anyways, did that cut me off or did you hear me?
No, I heard you. I heard you.
Okay.
I type it
Okay.
in. Mark
Okay, so that's probably
that
what I would do with that one.
line.
Christina, do you have any thoughts on this situation?
I mean, no, not really. Without knowing the whole situation leading up, and without having more context, I mean, I would do the same thing. A lot of the times, I'll say something like, "Are you alive?" But that's my personality. So I mean, I wouldn't go in there and do that if that's not your personality. Um, so I think if that becomes a pattern, and also like, did you sell the value of your follow-ups in the future? Like my people know you need to expect to hear from me. You need to expect to hear
Yeah,
from me
I
multiple
did.
times a week. And when I do, the only way for me to help you is if you're responsive. So like I put ownership on them to be engaged in their journey. Uh, so that would be that. That's what I would say about that.
Okay. And then the other new girl is like just complete opposite. I think she's just doesn't like texting and being social, but also she like I tried getting her on a welcome call and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just a much better texter." And then trying to get a hold of her through text is like pulling teeth.
So, so it's like, are you really a good
Right.
texter? Because I don't see any evidence. Okay, I think that's normal that people get busy and like I just know here's what I know about myself. I used to be the type of person that would respond to every text, everything, really. I truly every message on Facebook like when I first started. I was that type of person and it would hurt my feelings so bad when somebody wouldn't respond to me, especially if it was somebody that I knew.
Hmm.
But as my responsibilities have exponentially multiplied, what has to happen in my brain is that I have to prioritize things. I cannot respond mentally. Like I don't have the mental capacity to give everything attention that demands or requests my attention. And so some stuff I just have to I don't purposely ignore it, but I do make a decision like that's not the priority in this moment. Right now, I have to do XYZ, you know. And then or I might think I'm going to come back to that when I can think about it, but then I forget. So I think it's fine to follow up. Maybe try following up at various times of the day, but again, same thing. I would say the same thing. Like, hey, did I offend you? You know, like not did I offend you, but I mean, Christina said, "Are you alive?" Which is totally fine too. Um,
Or I'll
but
just say, "Are you okay? Are you
yeah,
okay? Is something wrong?" Can I ask a clarifying question?
yeah.
In general, Caitlin, when you're sending these messages, how long are your messages? Because you're saying I tweak it, I edit it, I'll add some stuff to it. Like, are they having to scroll?
No, I don't send scrolly messages. I'm too lazy for that, if we're being honest. I'll send a voice message if I feel like it's going to be really long.
Okay,
How
have you
many
tried
voice
seeing
messages?
that?
I've tried like voice messages and stuff with her. She actually just got back to me, just like me asking if she's okay and stuff like that.
Okay.
So she hasn't started her products yet. Um, and it seems like things are still kind of like up in arms with the mother of the grandkids.
Okay.
So
If she hasn't started her products yet, how long has she had the products? Like a month?
yeah, longer than that, I would say. I think she signed up the end of August.
End of August? That's not a month.
Sorry, end of what's before August? July.
Okay. Then she's probably waiting on a perfect time to do that 3-day reset, or she's avoiding it because it looks uncomfortable.
She
But
got that and triplex, so she has triplex with her as well.
okay.
Yeah,
Did you
it
remind
was
her of her goals?
July.
Like I would ask, are you still wanting to XYZ? Has something shifted? Are you still wanting XYZ result? That's the question I would ask.
Oh, stay sleeping, buddy. Shh.
Is that good?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Good questions, Caitlin. Thanks for speaking up. Who else?
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
I have a few, oh no, I lost my note. I have a few different people interested in the business.
Yay.
And I don't know if I am doing something wrong or if they are going at a normal pace and I just need to adjust my expectations. I feel like when I decided to start the business, I just like jumped into it and I was like sending a ton of messages and posting and getting in training and I was just ready to go. And that's not what is happening. So I don't know if I'm missing a step or if that's just normal. So the first person is, I have 4 people that are interested.
All right, before you jump into that, let me ask you some
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Why did you start the business?
Ed was going to be out of work for 6 months and I knew he was going to make me not cut Plexus from our budget and I felt too good to not be able to get my products. So I was motivated to just get them paid for.
All right.
That was my
so
goal. And
you
then
love the products. Any 4 of these
Yeah.
love the products?
2 of them love the products. 2 of them are very new and have not seen a ton of changes yet.
Okay. So you not only love the products, but you were hungry.
Yes.
So you had like a strong desire there. You
Mhm.
had a why. Your why
Yeah.
was get my products paid for. So it's not like
Yeah.
you had a diamond why that caused you to jump into immediate action, start doing things that were uncomfortable, but you had a why.
Mhm.
So the first question was, do they love the products? And then the second question I have is, do they have a why?
Yes, but I don't know that it's like an immediate why. It's like a more of a, it'd be nice to have more travel money or it'd be nice to pay off my debt, but like there's not like I wanted to have my products paid for that month because Ed was losing his job that month. So
Okay, so you had
I don't,
hunger.
yeah.
So you had 3 things: a love for the products, a why, and hunger.
Yeah.
So they're missing one of those 3 things. If they're not taking immediate action, they're missing one of those 3 things. Either they don't believe in the products, or and that's not a like that could just be because they hadn't used the products, right?
Yeah.
So they don't fully believe in the products yet, or like if they're saying it would be nice to have, that's the opposite of hunger. So if you want people to take urgent action, they would have to have an urgent why. Like they need to have some hunger. And so that's not a you problem.
Okay.
But that being said, there are some things you could do to cultivate some hunger. There's some things you could do to create some hunger in people. And I would say that would be the skill of like having someone think about their why. Like what would create urgency? What would create hunger in someone is them seeing a possibility of something they really, really want that they didn't actually realize was possible. But then suddenly they see it and they wonder, like, oh my gosh, what if that is possible? So that's a skill of connecting with people, asking good questions that get them to think a little deeper, and overcoming their objections, because they might sometimes people see the possibilities, they might see the vision of what's possible, but they don't necessarily believe it. And if they don't believe it, it's because they have a limiting belief, right? Or an objection. So the skill that of creating urgency or creating hunger in someone or cultivating the hunger in someone would be helping somebody connect with their why and then helping them believe that it's possible. So that's a process. How do you feel about that process? Do you feel like you would know what that process looks like or what to do?
I feel like it's an area I'm growing in when it comes to asking better questions and digging deeper. Like I'll ask a good question and then like immediately go into what they should do next. Like,
versus digging deeper and asking more questions. I just got in the mail yesterday the How to Win Friends and Influence People that you talked about last week. So I am going to read that. I do feel like that might help me.
Okay, well, let's talk through
Yeah,
these
I think
two
I'm
again.
like getting like surface level to their why and not digging deep enough into that.
All right.
And then the other thing I'm finding, especially with two of them, is a fear of, I think, what people think. And I don't think I'm doing a very good job handling that objection because it's not a fear that I've had.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm like, I don't get it. Just message them. They liked your post. Just send them a message. And they're like, no.
Okay, well, that one I definitely relate to, the fear of what people think, because I for sure have that one. I mean, I would be asking things like, what's the worst that happens here? And like get them to share their concerns with you. Like what are they worried about? And like what are they worried that the person's going to think? And then why are they worried about it? Where's that thought coming from? And then so asking the questions to get them to be a little vulnerable with you and share their fears and their concerns there. But then once they share it with you, like you do have to use feel felt found. Like you can't just like automatically disagree or tell them they're wrong because then they're just going to tune you out and think, "Oh, she doesn't understand. She doesn't get me." They need to feel like, "Oh, Miranda gets me. She understands." So that's why you have to use feel felt found. I understand how you feel. I felt the same way. Or if you didn't feel that way, then don't say that because that's not authentic. But you could use somebody else. You could say, well, my friend Brittany had the same fear because blah blah blah. Her dad's a pastor, like whatever. You use somebody that you know who does have that fear, and then so that they know that their fears are valid, their concerns are valid. They're not a crazy person, and they're not stupid for thinking what they think or feeling how they feel. So you have to validate by sharing that it's normal to feel that way. And there's plenty of other very successful people who have had the same thoughts, fears, concerns, worries, whatever. But here's what they did to overcome it. That after you've done all that, then you can offer the perspective that to help them change their thinking. And it would be something along the lines of, have you ever done something? Have you ever made a decision before that you knew people wouldn't, like 100% of people probably won't agree with it, but you knew it was what was right for you and your family? And maybe like help them think of other times where they have overcome, some kind of fear of what people would think, and help them realize that it was based off of like they were able to make that decision and face that fear or overcome it because they made a decision based off them believing that that was the best decision. It was what they believed. So um for me that would be like following Jesus or homeschooling. Like I've received a lot of criticism about both of those things, but becoming a stay-at-home mom, like I've had criticism about that. I've had criticism about a lot of things, and so has everybody else. So I would help them think through that by asking those questions. And I know you don't have to write every single thing down, Miranda. This is recorded, just so you know. So I don't want you to, I'm saying a lot of things really fast. But the other thing is just hearing things like you could be the juiciest, ripest peach in the world, and there's always going to be somebody who does not like peaches. And then things like this offers me perspective, like when you die, how many people are going to be at your funeral? And then after the funeral is over, how many people are going to keep crying? Like a handful, probably literally a handful. Yet all the other people who are going to like leave even if they did come to the funeral, they're going to leave the room and then they're going to go about their lives. We're like, you're basing your life decisions off of like what those people think, like you're letting them hold you back when there's a lot of life that you have to live. There's like a lot of possibilities that you could go after. But what's keeping you from reaching your potential or having the life you want is a fear of people's opinions who, at the end of the day, do they care that much? They probably don't. So this is like just this one thing, this fear of what people think. This could turn into like a 30-minute conversation at least. But this is what developing people looks like. So the other thing I would caution you, Miranda, is I wouldn't do this for every single person. This is an investment in a person. I would do this for people who you really do see their potential, because it needs to be authentic coming from you. If it's not authentic, what it feels like is manipulation. So the people you authentically see potential in, and you think that their thoughts and feelings might be holding them back from reaching their potential, these are people I would invest in. I'd be asking them questions, getting them to think. A lot of this would probably be on the phone. Maybe not the first, like I wouldn't immediately be like, hey, let's get on the phone. I probably would start out by just asking a simple question. But when it seemed like, okay, I need to go a little deeper here, or like, let's just talk this through. When it gets to the point where it feels like, let's just talk this through, that's when I'd be like, can I just call you? Can I just call you real quick so we can talk this through? I think it'd be easier to have a conversation versus like texting.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? I know I just threw a lot at you.
No, it's all very helpful to
Okay.
like have the words and like think about how the other person's thinking, because I think that's, like I said, because that hasn't been a fear typically for me. I was just having a hard time on like helping them overcome that,
Yeah.
or
Well, I think it
think about things
requires.
to overcome that.
So this is a skill of influencing people.
And I think in other areas, I feel like I have influence, but not in this particular belief in them. It's like more of like a belief in themselves or a fear of what other people think.
Yeah. You'll have to be intentional about the empathy here.
Okay.
If it's not something you struggle with at all and you don't relate to it, you have to be real intentional about the empathy. So you don't have to relate. You only just have to understand.
Okay.
Like where they're coming from. Because in order for you to influence them, they need to feel like you understand them. They don't need to feel like you are them. They just need to feel like you at least understand where they're coming from. So, and I know Christina has had this struggle too.
Yeah, my
Okay.
hands up. I'm like, I have something to say.
Okay.
Miranda, empathy is the next area I'm going to conquer. Here's what I do. If I cannot relate, I will ask myself this question. If I did struggle with that, or if one of my kids struggled with that.
Oh, that's a better question right there, Christina. Not if you struggled with it, but the kid one, that is where I see you exercise the most. And if you struggle with it, you immediately are like, I'd be disciplined. What's these people's problem? But if your kids struggled with it, you do dial up the empathy.
Yeah. So I'll just think, okay, if my kids were struggling with this, how would they need to be approached? Like, what would my body language need to be? Like, for me to draw them in versus repel, because my attitude generally can repel. My lack of empathy can repel. So for them to lean in and tell me more, how do I need to show up in my words, in my body language, in my tone? Because what I don't want to make them feel is ridiculous. And that's often how I can make someone feel. If I can't relate, I will be like, get over it. Who cares what people think? I could care less. Like, they don't pay your bills. And so I can make them feel stupid. And so, but with Tegan, if she's in 4th grade, like, it does really matter to her what her friends think. So I'm like, okay, if she struggles with this, what questions could I ask? Like, anyway, so that might be helpful for you to think.
That's
okay,
very helpful.
okay.
And
I'm
I
gonna write that
also want you
down.
to
Put
pay
on my
attention,
bulletin board.
Miranda, I don't know if you noticed Christina's body language just then, but did you see how she's just like, okay, what do I like? She's thinking so hard about it. She has to be very intentional about it. And so I just want you to know that that's normal. It's normal to have to think very hard and very deeply about it. So if it feels like it's hard work in your brain, just know that's how it should feel.
Okay. This
You're
is all
not
very
you're not
helpful.
broken, you're not like, you're not terrible at, like, I just don't want you to think other people just make this seem so easy. Why is it so difficult for me? Something's wrong with me. That's normally what people tend to think. But I just want you to, like, when you go back and watch this recording, if you do, pay attention to how her body language when she's describing, this is what I do to help myself with empathy. She is literally like this because it's work for her.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the other thing that helps in a conversation where empathy is needed is when they get to a place where they've been vulnerable, I will try to match their vulnerability. Even if it's not the same situation, I'll just say, hey, listen, I know that this feels like it could be a massive hurdle. And I don't have that same hurdle, but here was my massive hurdle. And I'll just kind of let them take a little peek in my soul so that they know, oh, she's not a piece of stone. Like I actually struggled with this fear and I thought this would be the hurdle that held me back. And so here's actually how I overcame that. And basically it's not the same. They're not related at all, but I'm just showing them that everything is figure outable and what you think will be the thing. Once you get up close to it and over it, it's like, okay, that was just a thing, not the thing.
That's so good.
I like that. But I feel like I was struggling then with like being authentic. I'm like, I can't tell them that I relate to where they're at because I don't, and I don't want to like be a liar, but I do like the matching with my own fear.
Yeah, because you had,
Like,
I mean, I can think of the things that you thought multiple
right,
times that were going to
right.
be the reason why you couldn't do this. And so you had to get through a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so you could pick one, yeah, sorry, Britt.
No,
that
that's
was
super helpful.
very
All of that. Both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good what you just said. Really good point about sharing matching their vulnerability. That is a great point. I do see myself doing that a lot. And I think that is what allows me to influence people. When I think about what influence is made of, just so we know, just so we're clear, leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what John Maxwell says. Leadership is just influence. So influencing somebody to take action here. I definitely think the motives matter, but also like influence has like ingredients. Like it's made up of a few things. It's like causing somebody to think a different way, but also challenging them to increase their contribution. So there's actually one more thing. Michelle might remember it from High Performance Habits. It was really like 3 things that makes up influence. I think but those are the 2 that stand out to me because I know I do that a lot. I will say something that causes them to think a different way, but then I challenge them to take a different action. So I do not mind challenging people. Like I'm not just cheerleading people. When I say I want people to reach their potential, I truly do. But it doesn't look like just only telling them what I think their potential is. I'll offer perspective that causes them to think differently, but then I will challenge them to do different, to be different. So
So can I tell you how that looks in a conversation with you?
yeah.
So she'll challenge a perspective and she'll say, okay, well, like, what if that's not true? We'll talk through that. Then she'll say, if that's not the case, and this actually were the case, what would you do then? Like, how would that show up in your action? So it's like, it's not a prescription she's giving me. Sometimes I think, and I was actually talking about this with Abby yesterday, we think our job is to be prescriptive. Go do, go do, go do. Sometimes it's get them to think, if they were going to show up as someone in this way, how would that look? And then you wait for them to get prescriptive. Like, okay, well, if I were gonna, like, if this were true, like you're saying, okay, people leave my funeral and like, basically what she's saying is their opinions actually don't matter. At the end of the day, it's not going to matter. The stakeholders that will matter are these people. So if that were the case, how would someone whose focus was on their stakeholders and not everyone else, how would they show up to build this? What would they do? And then I'll give her an answer. I'm like, okay, well, this is how, if I, did have empathy and I could relate with people, how would I mentor my team? Well, I could do this and I could try that. And she would say, okay, how's that different than what you were going to do? And so she'll basically get me to compare and contrast what my behaviors would have been. And it's like, okay, this is why this will serve the need. Sometimes hearing the questions you ask, because when she'll tell me, well, I'll challenge their perspective and then I'll, challenge the action. I'm like, what does that look like in real life? But she's done it with me a million times.
Can you give
A
a
million
solid
times.
example of what you're
Yeah.
describing?
So yeah. So when we used to battle back and forth about slow down and mentor your team or go after the prize. For a long time in my leadership journey, what was easier is go get results myself. Let me just go recruit. Let me just go create a business builder. Let me just go do these things. And she'd be like, Christina, you're going to have to help people get out of their own way. You're going to have to slow down. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to build people up. I don't know. And she'd be like, well, that's not true. Like, I've seen you do it with your kids. I've seen you do it with this one particular leader. Like, she would say things like that. I don't think that's true, that you don't know how to help people get out of their own way. And she'd give me an example. Like, well, think about when, I don't know, Bailey had this situation. You didn't just let her sit in what she was doing. You saw something different. You helped her get out of her own way. You developed her. So what if the same principles applied? Why did you do that? And I'm like, why did I do that with Bailey? Well, because I care deeply for my child. I want her to have this result or this life. Okay, can you apply that to your team? Absolutely. So she would get me to see that me slowing down to develop my team is simply just caring about them. It doesn't have to look the way she does, but she would say things like, if you were going to help a leader get out of their own way in the same way that you're going to help your child get out of her own way, what would that require? Well, it would require me to think ahead of time before I connect with my leader. I'd have to think. I had to think a lot before I talked to my child that day. Okay, what else would it require? It would require time. Christine, you can't always be in a hurry. You had to carve out time to go have that conversation with Bailey. You're going to have to carve out time to develop your leaders. Can you do that? I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. It's going to require vulnerability, Christina. Like, you had to bring Bailey close so that she would share her feelings. Can you be vulnerable with your team? I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. She's like, yes, you do. Let's think this through. So she just would talk me through the actions that would be required if I were going to be someone who could do what I was saying I wasn't sure I could do. And so then I would have a prescriptive act. Okay, I need to think about April before I connect with her, and I need to carve out time and space, and I need to be willing to match her vulnerability. And she would say, if you'll do these things, Christina, when somebody can be vulnerable with you, what it means is they trust you. And you got to have trust in a relationship. In order for you to have influence, you have to have trust. So every time you do that, every time there's another layer of vulnerability, there's more trust. So like she would help me understand what's in it for me too.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And that process, what you just described, Christina, Michelle put it in the chat here. Here's the ingredients of influence. It's teach people how to think, challenge people to grow, role model the way. So challenge people to grow, that is like challenging to take a different action. But teaching people how to think, that's the offering of the perspective. And then role model the way. I'm not asking anybody to do anything I'm not willing to do myself, ever, ever. So, what that like that's the same process that I just told Miranda to use with her business builder. I basically said challenge, like, teach them how to think, as in ask them questions that are going to get them to think of a different example in their own life where they took action despite knowing that some people wouldn't agree with that decision. Like, get them to think about that so that they're not sitting there thinking that or believing that they can't do it just because some people won't agree with it or might think something about it. And then the challenge is offering them perspective and that asking them to take action despite the fear. So like challenging them to have courage, So that's kind of the same process. And one other example I can think of is one time I had a girl who, like, I was coaching her and she kept, like, she just wouldn't be consistent with the taking the action to grow. But she would say she wants to grow, but then she wouldn't take the action. And she told me that the reason why she couldn't be consistent is because I'm just not a consistent person. That's what she said. She believed that she just wasn't a consistent person. And so I said, but is that true though? Can you think of any area of your life where you are a consistent person? Are you a consistent mother? Because I know she's a jam up mother. And I know her kids would think that. I know her husband would think that. I know anybody who knows her would know she's a great mother, right? So she's a consistent mother. I'm like, well, are you a consistent wife? Yeah, I'm a consistent wife. Are you a consistent good mother? Are you a consistent good wife? Like, not perfect, but like consistent, you know? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, so well, then is it true that you're not consistent? If you're not a consistent person? And she said, I guess not. And I'm like, well, it's not true. You are a consistent person when you believe that it matters. So what do you need to believe here about this? What would make this matter? Like, what would you need to believe about this in order for you to be consistent with it? So that's me teaching her how to think and challenging her to take a different action. Does that make sense, Miranda? That's kind of the process you need to go through with each of these people. But I love what Christina said about matching their vulnerability. Like, even if you don't relate to that specific fear, everybody does have a fear. So you could share yours, and that does make you relatable. I think that's the role model piece of this. Like, oh yeah, I have fear too. I had to overcome it. I had to have courage. Here's how I did it. So that's role modeling.
And just also know, Miranda, if your tendency is give them the prescriptive action, the teaching them to think part is going to feel slightly frustrating for you at first. Just go ahead and embrace that piece. It's going to be frustrating to receive and frustrating to practice. I can remember so many times being like, Brittany, can you hurry the mindset step up and get to the point of our call where you're going to tell me what to go do? And it used to be infuriating. Like, and she'd be like, no, I cannot. I'm going to teach you how you should be thinking about this. Because I'd be like, there's a real important thing and I need to know how to handle it. Can we just, I would be so immature and to be like, can you fast forward the 30 minutes of this and tell me where we're going to end up? I knew we were going to get there eventually, but she was like, no, because the goal wasn't for me to have her prescriptive answer. The goal was one day for me to be able to think through it and come up with my own answer. But in order to do that, I had to be taught how to think of multiple perspectives. There was just so much I didn't know. But it was so uncomfortable. So just know if that is your tendency, like it is mine, it's a learned skill, receiving and giving, but it can be done. It just requires practice.
It's so uncomfortable. It makes her look like this.
It really does. Because she'll be like, well, how would you feel if that weren't true? And I'm like, that's the dumbest question. It is true. I'm telling you, it's true. She's like, but what if it's not? What do you mean? What if it's not? And then before you know it, here I am admitting it wasn't true. And I'm like, this is so freaking annoying. I'm calling someone else next time that won't challenge my perspective. Just kidding.
Wonder who that would be.
But over here, all feeling like, oh, Christina's so lucky to have Brittany as our upline. Hours of having to be taught how to think. My brain be hurting. Have to undo my hat, strap it too tight.
You're welcome.
But there is a difference. I mean, you guys know, you got the friends that when you're in a fight with your husband, you could call this friend and she'll agree with all the reasons why he sucks. And then you got the Brittany friend that's like, what's your ownership in this argument? And it's like, none. I am freaking perfect. Are you kidding?
That's not the first question. I know who you married to, so I do practice empathy.
She'd be like, you right. What you do?
Empathy first, and then
yes, it's the best. So nice. It's uncomfortable, Miranda, but I love that you're reading that book. That will also help you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Miranda? She'd probably like, I'm scared. I'm scared to say any more thoughts.
No, I do. I agree. I think that has been part of the problem is when, like I said at the very beginning, like, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if this is like a normal pace. And I do think that it comes down to like slowing down and being okay with it being a little bit slower.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Good, Miranda. I love it. I think that what we're describing is how to build a star diamond team. That is that if the goal is just to increase your income by $1,000, I mean, you don't have to do everything we're describing. But if your goal is to create a legacy business that will provide you freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom, and you will have a big impact, and you'll have, a team culture that people love being a part of, that they're proud to be part of, that they don't want to leave, um and they're finding purpose and fulfillment and a place to belong. And like, if that is what you want to build, which I highly recommend that you do, I mean, this is what is required. It's developing of the people and investing in the people. But again, you can't do this for every person. It needs to be authentic. Like, you need to really believe in the person's potential in order for it to be effective. All right, great questions, Miranda. Miranda, did you want to tell us about the 4 people so that we could help you brainstorm on questions, or you good?
I'm good. I mean, unless you want a specific example, but I feel like I wrote down some good questions for 3 of the people, so I kind of know what to do after the call.
Okay, cool. All right. Who else?
I have one.
Okay.
Drop my phone. I have a girl that I have been back and forth, touch base with. I don't know her really well, but I know her. I mean, I've known her for several years, and I've been touching base with her for several years. And recently, I sent her the her new the Marianne kind of was talking to her, and then she did watch the Jessica Heffley video.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
and I sent her. She wanted to know about the products because she's a homeschool mom. She's um, very into natural kind of stuff, and she was very impressed with the products. She said that this would be great for her son. She really wants them, but the financial thing is she's that's a big burden for her financially. And so talking to her about the business, and then so she watched the Heffley. She was like, "Yeah, I'm really interested and curious. It sounds, I'm actually very surprised after seeing this stuff and reading what I sent her. But I just need to pray about it. And this has been a couple of weeks now, and I'm not really getting. We've touched on other stuff, um, talking about her chickens and whatever, but I can't get her to make that next step. Um, so I
Okay.
don't kind of like what I do next.
Yeah. So you're sitting there thinking 1,000 years is like a day to the Lord. So it sounds like this is somebody you say you've been touching base with this person for several years. Do you mean you've been talking to her about Plexus for several years?
Um, yeah, I've sent her different things. She's followed a lot of my stories. She's my sister-in-law's best friend. So I don't know her real personally well, but I know her and I've been around her enough to, I do know her pretty well. She's a
Okay.
very strong Christian woman, homeschool, just, very solid, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a good person and in her beliefs and very involved in her church. And like I said, she kind of lives off the land. She's very, particular about certain things. And her son, she said, has a lot of ADHD and some different things that she would love to try this stuff. So I know that's one of her pain points.
Yeah.
Um, I just know the financial thing is they're very tight. Her husband's the only one bringing income in. She does a lot. She does stuff at church. She does homeschool. She runs a homeschool club with other moms, I guess, or whatever that's called.
Okay. So is this
I do
somebody you
know
talked to
her.
first about the products or the biz?
I talked to her first about the products.
Okay.
Um,
But then you sent her Jessica's video?
I asked
Okay.
her, this has been a couple years. I've asked her several times about the products, or just if she'd
Okay.
be interested in checking out what I have. And for the longest time, it was, I'm just not interested. We don't have any extra money to put into it. Or, that's always been what it went back to, was the money.
Great.
And then this last time when we started this Marianne thing, I kind of sent that to her, went through those scripts, and of course tweaked them. But and then she was, well, yeah, I'm willing to watch the video. But because I knew knowing her and her beliefs and her faith and that mission kind of thing would
Yeah.
touch her heartstrings.
Yeah, I think that's really good, Julia. I think it's fantastic that you reached out to her and offered her the opportunity. Um, and it was very strategic that you sent her that particular video because you knew that it would resonate with her. So you
Mhm.
sent her the video, and then that made her more interested in the products. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so, because then she was like, well, I really want to check the products out because I'm particular about what I put in my body and in my son. And then she was um, telling me more about his ADHD and different things.
Mhm.
Because I know, like I said, she's followed me on Facebook and seen some testimonies and things that, um, uh, so I sent her some stuff about that as she looked at, like the triplex and the ingredients. And she was like, yeah, I was actually very impressed with the ingredients. I was very surprised. And I don't think she expected it to be um, what I was telling her and how good it was.
Okay, so
But now it's,
she did give her stamp of approval on the products. But at
yes,
this point, it sounds like what's holding her back is she doesn't really have the money for the
yeah,
products, and she is interested in making money, but something's holding her back from the biz. Is that where we're at?
yeah, yes.
Okay. So I probably would invite her to something else. She needs to see our community. I think a book study would be really good for her to check out.
Okay,
I think if she was a homeschool mom and she's a Christian, she probably would really resonate with one of my opportunity events that you could send her. The one that I did about profitable and productive or something. I don't remember what it was. Something like that. It was about the Proverbs 31 woman and
okay,
how I've just lived that out through this business model. So that might be a good one to send her. But whatever you send her or ask her to give her attention to, whether it's a live opportunity event or it's it could even be a book study that you invite her to, whatever it is you're asking her to give her attention to, just know you have to sell the value of what you're asking her to do. She would need to know what's in it for her. And so she needs to feel that you understand her. And so if you go to her and you say, listen, I know that you're praying about this, that I found this. This might be something that would help you make a decision. I know this feels like a big decision to you, so this might help you. This might assist you in making a decision that's best for your family as you're praying about this. But I want to share this with you because this girl was also a homeschool mom, and she's a Christian, and she talks about how she's used this business for blah blah blah, like whatever it is you think she would resonate with her, you sell the
hmm,
value to her. So right now what's valuable to her is something that will help her make a decision because she's obviously undecided. Like it seems
yeah,
like it might be a good thing, but she's not really sure. She's got some
yeah,
limiting beliefs, she's got some objections, and she wants to seek the Lord on it. She wants wisdom. So something that could help her with that decision would be valuable to her. So I would use the words wisdom. I would use the words Proverbs 31. I would use the word homeschooling, Christian, decision. Like these are the key words that I would be using in my messaging to her. And then I'd be
okay,
strategic about what asking her to give her attention and time to. So
okay,
for me personally, I would send her a recording of an opportunity video that I have done because I mean she would relate to me if she's a homeschool mom.
okay. Yeah, her two, I think, is the money, like, and time. And I always think about what Michelle has said, that she actually looks for people that are busy and say they don't have that time, because that tells you they're hard workers and
Mm-hmm.
push themselves to, and she is. I've no doubt about that kind of thing. She's definitely a go-getter for sure.
Yeah. So once you send her that next resource, then the next step would be asking good questions. Good questions like, what stood out to you from that? What are your fears concerning this? Like, if you were to do it, what do you think would prevent you from succeeding or reaching your goals? If you decided not to do it, what would hold you back from doing it? Like, I just would be asking questions to kind of get to her heart and see what's on her heart that needs to be, like we said earlier, challenged,
Right.
and offered a different perspective or whatever. So
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, good question. Let us know how it goes.
I will. Thanks.
All right, we have time for one more. We got 5 minutes.
I had a question, but I think y'all answered it. But I want to make sure it's very similar to Miranda's, because I'm like not fearful. Not well. I have some fear, but I'm not fearful to talk to people. But there's a girl that was my silver when I first started, and she dropped off. She's in Mississippi. She has no support at home. Basically, her husband is like furious if she brings up any kind of network marketing. Well, she's been back following my post, and I reached out to her yesterday and I said, want to give it a try again? And she's like, I cannot do this. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but what I know is happening is no support at home. So in that same, I didn't have support at home, but I did it anyway. Now Scott supports me, but I was just like, I'll leave you at the house. I'm not worried about that. But when you have somebody like that, I mean, how is it the same concept? Still try to empathize with her, like, and I understand where she's coming from, because I didn't have support, but I just did it anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That is a tough one because your husband really does influence you a lot. So I get it, but sometimes husbands are wrong. So I probably I would show that I care by asking, what are his main objections?
Okay.
Like, what is he worried about? What's his main objections? And then I probably would offer her perspective that would help her in a conversation with him. She's probably not going to be able to go and, convince him still, especially just like without much experience, but she'll probably, like, it would boost her belief.
Yeah.
Like, even if she's not able to articulate it clearly or communicate it clearly to him, she'll know what she thinks and feels if I were to take the time to address every single one of his objections.
Okay.
And so that might at least get her to the point of being willing to take action. But then also, I think in combination with sharing stories of other very successful people who've had the same struggles. And there's a Facebook page, Amy. Let me see if it still exists. It used to be called John's Pink Drink, and it was Sarah Marble's husband. See if I can find it. It was so
That
good.
was what I was going to ask. Is there anybody who's had that, like, no support? And she, even when she did it before, he was just like, you've lost your mind. And as soon as you don't do this, she's going to drop you like like a hot potato or whatever. And that has not happened. I still stay in touch with her. And it's like, and I don't think there's the rest of the relationship is very good. So there's more to it than that. But, But
Okay.
that's what I was wondering, is there was someone.
Yes, there's lots of someone's, but Sarah Marble comes to mind immediately
Okay.
because Sarah Marble's her husband is a nurse anesthetist. Is that how you say it? Anesthetist. Is that how you say it? But she's
Yep.
an RN, so they're both in the medical field. And she wanted to quit her full-time job to be a full-time Plexus ambassador. She's now a diamond, but she quit her position as an RN way before she was diamond and wanted to do this full time. She could see the freedom that this would offer that being an RN did not. But her husband is also big in the medical community. So, anyways, he was the biggest skeptic and he was not very nice about it. But now he's caught the vision with her because she went and proved him wrong. Like she went and got results. She surpassed his income. And then he went and made this Facebook page. It's called John's Pink Drink. And I recommend you scroll all the way back to the beginning of it. You will find some really
Okay.
good posts that he used to do back in like 2014, 15, something like that. But this is the type of thing that would offer somebody hope in that situation. Like, see,
Okay.
he was the biggest skeptic, but now look at these posts he's writing. Like, you just
Yep.
you don't know when, like, a husband can change his mind, but she needs to not, I wouldn't encourage her to ignore him or do it anyway or without his approval or whatever, but I would try to empower her and equip her to overcome his objections.
Okay.
And then, like I said, share the success stories of other people in the
Yeah,
same.
if she can overcome his objections, then she can overcome all the customers' objections.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
in my
And
opinion.
also Sarah
So,
Marble's
yeah.
Diamond documentary, you might want to check that out. They may mention that in there. Her husband's
Okay.
now also an emerald.
Okay.
She's a diamond, he's an emerald, and he actually works the business, and so does their son. Their son, who has just turned 18, is also working the business now with them. So anyway, huge
Okay.
success story. But he was the meanest, biggest skeptic, and he's so dang smart, and so it's just really hard to convince him. And the only way she could convince him was with her results, but she did, and now he's the biggest proponent and he's very smart, so he's very well spoken, very well spoken, and he writes well, and he's just a great communicator. So
Yeah.
okay, we're out of time. Thank y'all for hopping
Thank you.
on. We won't be on here next Thursday because we'll be in Hawaii. So we'll see y'all the following week. All right, bye.